this event along with the slides and a feedback survey as well. And so we would very much appreciate in advance some of your time to complete that feedback survey. I think that's very helpful for us to know how to improve from here as well. But yes, this meeting will be recorded, just to repeat for some of the folks who might have just trickled in. Great. So again, welcome. For the next hour or so, we're going to have a session on using AI tools to enhance academic policy engagement. My name is Elise, and I will be delivering the session alongside my colleague Ree, who's also on the call. Firstly, would like to thank UPEN and especially Audrey Tan for having us. And I hope everyone who is joining the call today or seeing this recording afterwards, hopefully the session provides some inspiration, and we hope this is kind of the start of a conversation of further collaborations in the future as well. So to get started on brief introductions for those who might not have crossed paths with us before. Rhea and I are policy advisors at UCL's Policy Impact Unit. And what the Policy Impact Unit is we are a team of dedicated policy engagement specialists who work with UCL researchers in the Faculty of Engineering Sciences to turn complex evidence into policy relevant insight and engagement. That's the what we do. How we do it is through designing workshops, producing policy briefs, supporting consultation responses, and engaging in a wide range of engagement channels at the interface of academia and policy. Importantly, and most relevant to the session today, we also test and share our methods with the wider knowledge exchange community. And so over the past couple years, we have been testing, incorporating AI tools into some of the engagement activities, and we're excited to share some of that with you today. And so in terms of the agenda for today, we'll start out with how we think about when and why to use AI. I think it's quite important to be thoughtful over why we test certain things and what the consequences are. The second section, which will be the bulk of today, around real life examples, and followed by some tips on prompting and using those AI tools, is that we really want to go beyond general principles and get into the tactical details to make this session practically useful for people, for you. And so to note, the examples we're bringing today are largely focused on events, workshops, and in-person engagements, although we recognize that the formats of academic policy engagement go well beyond in-person engagements. But this is the arena and the formats where we have tested using AI tools the most so far. And so we'll kind of focus our examples in this area. This will be followed by some caveats and key lessons. I think important to highlight is that we are all learning as we go. The tools are also continuously evolving, and we are taking an iterative approach to how we are testing and learning and refining our use of AI tools in this space. And last but not least, we'll share a little bit about future direction, where we're headed and what we're testing next. So on that, in terms of the when and why, I think firstly to address the elephant in the room and to be quite frank, I think it's important to recognize firstly that there can be quite a lot of anxiety and also sometimes misdirection on the topic of AI, especially topics around automation, work displacement, etc. For us, we believe and have found that in academic policy engagement, a lot of our work is based on relationships. It's based on tacit knowledge. It's based on many things that are not necessarily programmable or automatable. So for us, I think worth addressing first and foremost, that not only should AI not replace the human, but there are also many aspects of what makes us effective that cannot be replaced. And so we believe and have found also that if you were to be a part of a team or a larger organization that has the resources to hire additional staff and skills in a wide range, that at the end of the day, human creativity is still superior. And so a lot of what we will be sharing and talking about today are enhancements on top of what we already do in our day-to-day roles. On this point on balancing innovation and sustainability, a lot of what motivates our interest in testing AI tools in the space has to do with seeing where there is room to be creative and more effective at achieving our engagement objectives. We are conscious, however, of the especially climate costs of using AI tools. And so we believe there is a balance to strike between innovation and sustainability. So this might look like crafting prompts in order to generate outputs efficiently, or really asking ourselves before we start testing or using AI tools in certain areas, what the incremental value really would be. On the point of individual capacity and time commitment, to be very honest, another part of what motivates our interest in testing AI tools in this space has also got to do with capacity. To put this in context, our team, we are a growing but still fairly lean team of under 10 full-time policy advisors, while the number of researchers in UCL engineering ranges in the thousands. So at any given point in time, each policy advisor is supporting multiple researchers and working on multiple concurrent projects. And we know this is also the case probably for many of you on the call today. And so where we would consider employing the help of AI tools is when we have brand new great ideas for text or image or video-based activities, but we face time or budget constraints in delivering them. However, on the flip side, while many AI tools can seem intuitive and easy to use, it's important to highlight, or rather, it would be a misguided assumption that using them doesn't take up any time, because we've learned that using AI tools also requires budgeting sufficient capacity to assure the quality of the AI outputs. And which leads on to my next, but certainly last but not least point, that our use of AI tools always comes down to knowing our audience. Who are they? What is the setting of the engagement? What is the policy issue, among other considerations? Incorporating AI into our engagements is not just about looking cool. It's really about being more effective and helping achieve our engagement objectives. So I think all of this still has our engagement objectives at the core of why we use certain tools and how we use them. So with all this in mind, one more thing I should mention. Additionally, given certain known and expected qualities of AI tools, such as hallucinations, inconsistency with following instructions sometimes, and a range of other issues that you might have also encountered. We also typically consider using AI tools or using AI outputs in situations that can handle some room for error or imprecision. So just another bit to keep in mind. And so with all that said, we'll go into sharing some examples of how we've used AI tools broken up into before, during, and after our in-person engagement events. So to start off, picture this. you are running a workshop on the future vision for something, whether that something is a piece of technology, a policy issue, a certain community, insert whatever space you are working on. You know that 5 minutes before your participants stepped into the room, and this is true for academic and policy stakeholders alike, they were hunched over their phones, deep in their inboxes, dealing with the problems of today and yesterday. And so one of the key challenges that we often face in our work is finding ways to get people to lift themselves out of the details of their day-to-day work in order to be able to place themselves in the future or imagine what could be rather than what they are bogged down with today. Which is where these news clippings from the future come in. So these, what you see on the screen here are imagined but realistic news clippings set in a future date. And these, we have them printed and posted around the room when participants are first arriving, either during or right after registration. And what they do is they serve as a pre-workshop primer to prime the participants for later facilitated discussions around visions of the future. And having these news clippings around also sometimes serves as a provocative but casual conversation starter before the workshop formally begins. How we did this was we had members of our team and sometimes we also reach out to people beyond our team as well to brainstorm various scenarios for what the impact of a certain technology or topic at hand might be. And our brainstorm might range to varying degrees of specificity. And we input those brainstormed scenarios into a large language model tool to then generate these images of future news clippings. And so aside from written 2D news clippings, we are also iterating on this and have been working on how to use AI to create more engaging and interactive pieces of media as well. And so one of them being a video. It is by no means perfect, but the purpose of this is to be a conversation starter. And Reed, do you want to go ahead and play it and see if this might come through? I'm not sure if the audio is coming through, but as the video is playing, this kind of gives you a sense of what the video is about. So this was a video that was created through an AI video generation tool. In this case, we used the program HeyGen, which has the watermark in the lower right corner to create this video. Notably, in this case, there were 2 layers of AI use. We know that generating videos can be quite resource intensive. So we actually first used a large language model to help refine the video script. And so in the text box on the right over here gives you kind of a sense of the starting prompt that we put into a large language model to help us create and refine the video script that we then, at the second step, inputted into HeyGen to create the video itself. And so I think worth noting that this process, kind of this like two-step, 2-layered AI use process was also quite helpful for our team to learn how to create more efficient and effective prompts, which Ree will also touch on later in this session. So those are a couple examples on my end for the before event steps. I'll pass it to Ree for one of the events that she's worked on as well.
Thanks, Elise. So this part is around a workshop that we ran in partnership with the Capabilities in Academic Policy Engagement, or CAPE project. So we hosted a workshop with them as well, so a team from the PRU as well as the Department of STEEP, around the futures of academic policy engagement. So what we essentially did was we had a visioning and sense-making session in the workshop, and we wanted to create this dedicated futures scenario, which, this material is very much, whereas the kind of generated news material Elise just spoke to was about kind of inspiration and stepping into the role. This is kind of iterating on that and building upon it to create a kind of dedicated session for participants to react to. So this again was designed to transport people into the future, get them thinking outside of their prescribed identity into a new environment, and have these preconditions and scenarios set up for them. So the kind of what we developed these future scenarios through AI based off discussions of, okay, what might be some kind of themes that we're thinking about in 2040 relating to academic policy engagement. And so the groups were assigned to a specific scenario. So one example you see on the screen there is around national intelligence. So this was focusing on deep partnerships between universities, policymakers, supported by robust research funding and a coordinated national approach. The two other scenarios that we had developed with AI was United Universities, which was around sustainable policy engagement through regional devolution and diverse funding schemes. And then we had another one on Band-Aid called Band-Aid Science, which was a fragmented academic policy landscape. And so what we did was we used AI to develop not only the kind of descriptors you'll see on the left-hand side of those photos, but also the photos to kind of visualize what that environment looks like. And then participants were required to respond to these initial scenarios. And then we developed, again, using AI materials, putting the scenario that we had built, we asked AI to, okay, develop a critical moment or a shock that our participants need to react to in this type of workshop. So we used, I think it was a version of Microsoft Copilot, DAL E3, to develop these diverse fictional scenarios and content using prompt image generation there. And just kind of touching on the impact, and I see there's questions around feedback from participants on the use of these resources. From our perspective, not only as a knowledge exchange professional did it kind of increase engagement and make workshops of these nature quite exciting and engaging. We've seen an increased participation and engagement with the material. For futures thinking specifically, I think it's really helpful in kind of transporting you into a future environment which you might not ordinarily imagine. If you're sitting there in a workshop and you ask participants to imagine you're in 2040, that is all well and good, but giving them something to react to, I think really helps in facilitating that futures-based and strategic foresight type thinking. I think it also helps create for us as academic policy engagement professionals, it creates session material that's really diverse and well-rounded. I think it allows the audience to kind of think creatively, and also helps us to develop session material in a quicker fashion, which I know, in a resource and time-intensive world, that's very beneficial for us as professionals in this space. So I will hand back to Elise to discuss this next.
Great. So on one of the examples for our during event section, and I think there are a couple people on the call right now who might have been at this particular event of ours, the ARI Live pilot back in 2024. And So during events, we often have table discussions and then ask table facilitators to play back key discussion points to the room when we reconvene for group plenary. In this case, we had table facilitators send their tables digitized discussion notes to a staff member who was dedicated to on-the-day digital coordination. In this case, they managed the AI image generation, an example of which you see on the screen here, by inputting the digitized notes into Copilot to create a visual summary to accompany each table facilitator's verbal summary. If you'd like to learn more about the mechanics of how this worked, we have published an ARI Live toolkit and would also be happy to answer any more questions about that. But in terms of what this visual summary accomplished, frankly, I think describing this as a visual summary is probably an oversimplification. It certainly did play a summarizing function by acting as a visual aid for the table facilitators. Also, some people tend to be more visual learners, so having an image on the screen also helped the discussion sink in better and make a greater impression. But more importantly, this image visually demonstrated to people what was picked up as the focus area of their conversations, and conversely, what the gaps were. And it's really kind of through this like visual presentation of things that inspired deeper reflection on the topic of discussion. So the image that you see on the screen here is a summary of a discussion on AI in healthcare settings, which was rather cheeky of us to be using AI in a workshop discussing AI. But one of the insights that participants picked up through seeing this image was that in this whole discussion about healthcare, the patients seemed to be missing. And that kind of prompted further and deeper discussion on the conversation topic after the image was presented. So really, this using AI outputs in this context went beyond summarizing the conversation to deepening the conversation. I'll turn it back to Rhi for another couple examples in her world.
Thanks, Elise. So this was a session that we ran in partnership with the London Borough of Newham out of the Policy Impact Unit, and also the Co-Design Lab, which is run out of STEEP. So this was a workshop to develop a future vision for Newham across some emerging priorities, including that we had 4 key themes for community members, business leaders, policymakers, young people to come to the table to discuss, and that was around resilient economy, a cohesive community, and vibrant culture and sustainable environment. So we co-designed a workshop with Newham to develop future visions across these areas in a quite a structured way and creative way when we're thinking about futures thinking, so we could bring in diverse perspectives and viewpoints all together. So in terms of what we did, we really combined kind of live AI synthesis of discussion, as Elise has pointed to, as in a futures thinking methodology. So we chose a futures methodology around futures, the futures triangle, which positions the weight of the past, push of the present, pull of the future. We had table discussions on each of these 4 themes, discussing those 3 points, and the live discussion captured from table facilitators was then fed back to me during the session, in which we fed into Copilot to create a live vision statement. So it was doing that live AI synthesis in a futures format in order to come up with vision statements across these 4 areas. And I'll just say that one of the kind of key considerations we noted here was around audience trust, privacy, and data. So the environment that we were operating in and the stakeholders that we were engaging, we noted that a lot of them hadn't had a lot of exposure to AI. They might have been lacking in trust. They don't use it in their day-to-day. Perhaps they're new to this type of field, or AI seems like something that only exists in the world of technology, and it's not relevant to them in their day-to-day. So when we're thinking about different considerations and objectives of why we're using it in for a workshop, we had to consider our audience as a key element of this. So at the start of the workshop, we acknowledged we're using AI to capture some discussions and create future vision statements for you across these 4 themes. But what we're going to do here, and we were very clear in the methods that we used, the tool that we used, which was Copilot, and we specified to the audience that UCL, we have an agreement with Copilot as a platform. There's all these precautions and measures to ensure that there's privacy of data, all of your thoughts are anonymized, and setting out those preconditions before we started the workshop. Then, as I mentioned, the table facilitators fed in their anonymized discussion data. I fed it into AI to kind of show and develop a vision statement across these areas. So to kind of give you a flavor of that process, this is the exact chat that I had with Copilot on the day. So that I attached, you can see here, the discussion template and said, summarize this document and develop a 1 to 2 line high-level mission statement for the future vision of resilient economies. That was one of the themes in UPEN, and attached the document. And then this was all done over the lunch break during the workshop. And then this was the final, well, this one's for a sustainable environment, but it came up with this line which really captured the essence of the discussion that was had on the table. So to empower Newham's diverse communities, especially its youth, to co-create a greener, more inclusive future through education, collaboration, and sustainable innovation. So you can see there some of the key words that were being pulled out from the discussion. And I wanted to highlight in terms of the impact that this had. And I know that we talk about audience, we talk about the impact of AI and how it's received in a live event. And I think particularly for this workshop, it was, really quite insightful and fascinating for participants to see how their key ideas, their hopes and visions for the future of their community that they live in are going to be represented in next steps for policy. So often when we're consulting on issues, particularly for communities who might not be represented in policy, they're or kind of brought to the table to have those policy discussions. Individual voices might feel like, their perspectives fall on deaf ears. It goes into a black hole. Policymakers respond and say they're going to do something, but then they're never able to see where their consultation kind of goes. And, they might not see themselves in the policy world. So I think the feedback that we got on the session and the impression that I got from designing and then, actually doing the workshop was that it was really well received, and participants felt that they could see themselves in the future. And I think as an engaging tool, being able to show them what the output looks like on the day was also something that was really effective. So, this was a really successful tool and something that we kind of want to iterate and integrate with other different academic policy engagement methods that we do. So on to the next kind of section, and it is under the after headline, but I will preface that while this is technically after an event, there is a lot of before and during work that goes on for something like developing a live event report. So sorry, everyone. We're just having a fire alarm test. There we go. Should have anticipated that one. It happens every single week, and yet managed to forget. Anyway, I digress. So this example, and I will say a lot of the tools that we've mentioned, we are constantly working on and iterating, but this is the developing a live event report using AI, something that we piloted back in July 2024. So, coming up to 18 months, 2 years ago now, and it was during an ARI live event. And now this has actually become something that is, a tried and tested method. It actually does feel business as usual for our team. Most, if not all, of our events that we do in the PRU have some form of live AI generated report that comes out of it. So this is something that we have been working on and kind of refining over the past 18 months, and it really has benefited our team, the kind of what we're doing in AI use. So essentially, the coming into an event, we noted that you come out of a workshop and there's often a lot of energy, there's momentum. You might hear the phrases, let's keep this conversation going, let's connect, let's keep talking about this policy issue, and there's lots of excitement that is generated in live in-person events. But we noted that as time passes, a few days go by, other priorities come up, the next project comes up, the next workshop you go to, more emails flood into your inbox. You kind of see that momentum gradually dies out. And so the objective here for us was really around how do we capture that energy and momentum and actions that come out of a workshop. So we piloted a kind of process to use AI to develop live event reports. And this was essentially to have a report that is done and, near on perfect, that would be emailed within 1 to 2 days of attending the workshop, or in some cases at the very end of the workshop. So, we really wanted to develop this method to keep the conversation going, make sure that any of the momentum wasn't lost. So, in terms of a bit of the what this looks like and the how, I mentioned that there's pre, during, and post event that does come into this. So there is a fair bit of coordination, but it is testament to our team that once you have those points nailed down, it can become something that is I won't say easy, but becomes a bit more streamlined to be able to enact on the day. So when we're preparing to develop a live AI generated report, the pre-step is definitely something that's really important. So it means having a workshop template. So you can see what's old UCL branding now, but having a branded template that has the different sections in a report that aligns to a workshop that you're putting out. You can pre-fill any information if you've got kind of what this event was about, if you've got information about panel members on one of the sections. You can input the different headings and have as much as you can filled out beforehand. It is then really important in your team to develop clear roles and responsibilities. So this looks like, a lead facilitator, if you've got table discussions, making sure that you've got note takers on each table. And then it is also really important, and if you've got the time and resources, to have someone who is solely dedicated to doing the live AI synthesis and making sure that you've got kind of structures set up. So for example, we use SharePoint, and when we have a note taker, they have a specific SharePoint document that the AI reporter on the day has access to, and so they can go in and see the notes being put in real time. Then the note taker, once they are completed with their specific section, we know that information can be copy and pasted and put into AI to develop key points and then feed that directly into a report. So, and I don't want to kind of preempt too much of the prompt writing now, and I'll give you some examples later, but having the prompts written beforehand has been really helpful. So the person doing the live AI synthesis can upload the note-taking document and say, use and summarize this document to write an introduction for this report. The aim of report is to XYZ. The report should provide this context and it should be less than 300 words or something to that effect. And we'll show you some examples later so you don't have to type down all those that wording quickly. So that is kind of the pre and the during of an event, and you kind of it helps you work consecutively throughout the day based on the different sessions you've got for a workshop. And then I'll just specify that the after point is really important here, and post-workshop, and we've reiterated this at the start, and it's something that we'll keep hounding home about, but human oversight and review is incredibly important when you're doing any AI work, specifically for this live event report. Always having human oversight and review is incredibly important because you're answering the questions like, what's missing? AI can often generalize and synthesize lots of information and pull out the key points, but often we've found, and one of the considerations here is that sometimes it misses those little golden nuggets of information that might seem a little bit askew and not kind of into the main key points or the general consensus of the team, but they're really interesting and they're really insightful. And so having this requires note takers and facilitators to review the final report once all the sections have been synthesized by AI to really make sure that the essence of the day isn't lost and those in specific, maybe slightly off center, but really important points are covered. And so once that's done, essentially it cuts out a lot of that time and resource in terms of pulling together and going through notes and, writing the words of a report, which we know can take a long amount of time. And just to provide a bit of color of what the impact is, I think from a logistical side, it's really helpful for us as academic policy engagement specialists. It saves a lot of time. We've seen greater interest. We've had reports from stakeholders that, they've received a report the day after and they've been able to take it into the meeting the next day, which they wouldn't ordinarily have had. And so you're continuing that conversation flow. So it's really important there. Okay. Just as I've mentioned, and we've touched on prompts, a few key things to think about, and I'll provide some examples, but making sure that your prompts are tailored, specific, and not overcomplicated. Making sure the word count is in the output as well, being really specific again with what you're asking AI is only going to help you have more effective outputs. Naming the different style of output. Do you want a summary? Do you want 3 key points? Do you want it written in prose? That can be really helpful in guiding AI. Also, when we think about giving AI a role, imagine you are this person, imagine you are the audience, giving it a bit more context as to who's going to be interpreting the output is really helpful. Avoiding too many tasks in one prompt. You don't want to have one prompt that says, do 4 different things because something might be missed out. So really thinking about how you tailor those prompts. Again, for live event reporting, pre-populating where you can is really helpful, and making sure you have that oversight and refine your prompts to reduce extra work, not just for yourself, but with a lens of sustainability. The more you refine your report, the less you're going to have to keep asking Copilot to add something in. So there's just a few example prompts we've got here, which kind of hit on those key points that I have raised. And you can find all of these example prompts in our AI for Knowledge Exchange toolkit as well. So some caveats and considerations. as you know, and we've kind of said throughout this presentation, we really need to make sure that AI is suitable and it's used as an appropriate tool to achieve your objectives. We don't want people to be using AI just for the sake of it or to say you've used it to seem innovative. It's there to serve a purpose, and it's really important to be considerate about how you're using it. Are you testing a new method? Is this to help resource or time management? We know that academic policy engagement is really time intensive and it does require effort. So does AI help you or your team in this way as well? When we're selecting tools and methods, we need to make sure we're in line with institutional AI policies. Different universities may take different stances on this, but making sure that you are aware of this and you also communicate it to your audience. When we're thinking about data, privacy, and accessibility, it's really important to think about how are your audience going to react to this? How are you protecting their data? And is this accessible as well? Ethics and sustainability issues, we've mentioned it. There are real, genuine concerns about AI and the impact of it on the environment and sustainability. Ethically as well, it's important to consider. And, while we do promote innovation in this area, we are really considerate with how and why we use it. And they're really, I think, it's a larger conversation that we probably have time for here. But I think when you're employing AI in whatever your work, having ethical and sustainable kind of considerations and having that discussion with your team at the start before you use it is really important. Participants' attitudes towards AI. If I'm, sorry, someone might not be on mute. If you are running a workshop on the impact of technology on the environment with sustainability experts, and then you go ahead and use AI in really excessive ways, there might be some mixed reactions. So just having a consideration about that, but it always does come back to the purpose of your AI use and aligning with your overall objectives for whatever output that you're kind of putting forward. I will also say that EDI is a really important consideration. AI isn't perfect, and there often are a lot of EDI concerns. Making sure when you're refining the output, include EDI as a lens. Ask those questions: who or what voices are missing, and really make sure that it's a key consideration and lens that you're putting over your AI use there. In terms of quality assurance and oversight, we've pushed this throughout the entire presentation, but AI doesn't and cannot ever replace us. It's really important to make sure that there's manual review of our outputs. It's really critical. And then in terms of testing AI workflows beforehand, ensuring you've got resource and staff who are trained, who know what they're doing, and be ready with a contingency plan. It's not perfect, but as much as you can prepare and test beforehand, that's only going to make, for particular academic policy engagement events and workshops and things like that, it's only going to make you more prepared. And always having that backup of, technology is only as good as the person who's using it. So I'll just keep that as a caveat throughout any ways you consider using AI. And finally this is something we really try and champion at the Policy Impact Unit, but embracing a culture of openness, exploration, and experimentation. This goes in hand with being purposeful, but how you use it. But we always want to test new ideas, explore how to innovate the knowledge exchange profession, and we encourage you to do the same. If you have particular ideas about AI use in this environment, if you want to show us what you're doing, if you want to learn more, we really do want to hear from you. We know that we are a very small but growing community of academic policy engagement professionals, and we're really here to learn from each other. So I'll pop my email there. Really encourage you to reach out to us, and we want to hear what you're up to. So I'll pass it back over to Elise, who's going to talk a bit about the future direction that we're going in.
Thank you, Ree, and thank you for lively discussion in the chat as well. I think just to touch briefly on the caveats and considerations piece, I think the trade-off, or rather just to highlight the privacy requirements are really important. And I think it all comes back to really thinking about how and why you're using the AI tools in the manner that you are. And I think also bearing in mind, again, that a big piece of academic policy engagement work also comes down to trust and relationships. And so for us, I think keeping that in mind as we embark on our work has been quite important because trust is one of those things that's very difficult to build and very easy to lose. And so I think just to mention that as well. And so to come back to future direction, what we have shared today, the bulk of what we have shared today is centered on in-person engagements, so workshops, events. These could be full day, half day, 1 hour, the whole range. So we will be continue testing innovative methods to strengthen those in-person engagements. Again, always starting from the objective of what we are hoping our engagements to achieve, and then designing our use of tools from there. We are also exploring opportunities to use AI to strengthen other formats and channels beyond in-person engagements. So this might look like matching ARI, so areas of research interest, to researchers. This might be employing AI tools to help with horizon scanning, or to find and alert us of different engagement opportunities, et cetera. And so we will be publishing our findings as we learn more. So in addition to reaching out to Ree with her email provided in the previous slide, we also have a webpage that we will be updating as we test and learn more. And that, I think, wraps up the bulk of what we had for today. And before we close or get back to some of the questions in the chat, I also wanted to mention that there is a second webinar coming up next week that Audrey will be leading around AI-supported stakeholder mapping.
Okay, nice.
And so that will be wraps up kind of our session for today. And I will take a quick look through the chat again. Rhea, I don't know if there was